The phone fell from Zara's hands and crashed onto the marble kitchen floor, but she barely heard the sound. Her world had just shattered into a million pieces, and all she could do was stare at the cracked screen still playing the video that would destroy her marriage forever. On the screen, her husband Brandon was lying in their bed, the bed she had bought with her own money in the house she had purchased, wearing the Rolex she had given him for their anniversary. But he wasn't alone. A woman with blonde hair was next to him, wearing Zara's diamond earrings, the ones that had belonged to her grandmother. But it wasn't just the affair that made her stomach turn. It was what they were saying. "She has no idea," Brandon laughed, his voice dripping with cruelty. "Zara thinks I love her. The woman works 16 hours a day to build that tech company, and she comes home thinking she has a devoted husband." The blonde woman Nicole, Zara now remembered her name from Brandon's contacts, giggled as she held up Zara's credit card. "This one has a $50,000 limit. I used it to buy that purse yesterday." "Perfect," Brandon said, pulling Nicole closer. "By the time we're done she'll have nothing left. I've been moving money out of her accounts for months. The divorce papers are already drafted. My lawyer says I can get half of everything, including her precious company." "What if she fights it?" Nicole asked, painting her nails with Zara's expensive polish. Brandon's laugh was cold and heartless. "Fight with what? I've been documenting everything. I'll tell the court she's mentally unstable, that she can't handle the pressure of running a business. I've got emails, voice recordings, everything I need to make her look incompetent. She's so trusting she never even checks the bank statements." Nicole sat up, her eyes gleaming. "And then we take that money and start our own company. Your wife is brilliant, but she's weak. She actually thinks you married her for love." "Love?" Brandon snorted. "I married her for her connections and her brain. Do you think I'd choose some nerdy black girl otherwise? She's useful, that's all. But you're beautiful, Nicole. You're the woman I actually want to be with." The video continued, showing them planning out their scheme in detail. They talked about which assets to hide, which lies to tell, and how to make Zara look like an unfit business owner. They even planned to claim that Zara had been stealing from her own company. But the worst part came at the end. Nicole picked up Zara's wedding photo from the nightstand and laughed. "She looks so happy here. So stupid and happy." Brandon took the photo and threw it in the trash. "Not for much longer. In 6 months she'll be broke and alone, and we'll be living in her house, driving her cars and running her company." They kissed passionately and the video ended. Zara stood frozen in her kitchen, her whole body shaking. 5 years of marriage and it had all been a lie. Every "I love you," every anniversary dinner, every moment she thought they were building a life together, it was all fake. She thought about all the time she had worked late to grow her company, Thompson Tech Solutions, so they could have a better future. All the time she had transferred money to their joint account so Brandon could handle the finances. All the time she had introduced him to her clients and investors, helping him network and build his own career. She remembered their wedding day, how handsome he looked in his tuxedo, how he cried during his vows. Had those tears been fake too? Had he been planning this from the very beginning? The sound of the garage door opening snapped her back to reality. Brandon was home. Zara quickly picked up the broken phone, her mind racing. She had to think fast. If she confronted him now, he would know she had discovered his plan. He might accelerate his timeline or hide more assets. She ran upstairs to their bedroom and saw the evidence everywhere. The bed was unmade in a way she had never left it. Her jewelry box was open, several pieces missing. Her laptop was gone from her desk. He must have taken it to access her business files. The front door slammed shut. "Zara, I'm home," Brandon called out, his voice cheerful and loving, the same voice she had just heard plotting her destruction. She looked at herself in the mirror. Zara Thompson, 32 years old, successful entrepreneur, MIT graduate, and apparently the world's biggest fool. Her dark skin was flushed with anger, her usually perfect hair disheveled from running her hands through it. But her brown eyes, those showed something new. Not just hurt or betrayal. They showed determination. Brandon appeared in the doorway and for the first time she really looked at him. 6 feet tall, green eyes, the kind of smile that had fooled her for years. He was wearing a new shirt, expensive, probably bought with her money. "Hey beautiful," he said, walking over to kiss her cheek. "How was your day?" The casual cruelty of it took her breath away. He was pretending to be the loving husband while planning to destroy her life. "Fine," she managed to say. "Just fine." "Good," he said, not even looking at her as he started changing clothes. "I might be out late tomorrow night. Business dinner." Business dinner. With Nicole, no doubt. "Of course," Zara said quietly. I understand. As Brandon went to shower, Zara sat on their bed and made a decision. She wasn't going to be the trusting, naive wife anymore. She wasn't going to be the victim in his story. She was going to be the author of her own revenge. And by the time she was finished, Brandon would realize he had made the biggest mistake of his life. He thought he was playing chess while she was playing checkers. But Zara Thompson hadn't built a multi-million-dollar company by being weak or stupid. She was about to show him exactly what happened when you tried to destroy a woman who had nothing left to lose. The next morning, Zara sat across from Brandon at their breakfast table, watching him eat the eggs Benedict she had prepared. He looked so normal, so innocent, buttering his toast like he hadn't just planned to ruin her life. She had barely slept, replaying the video in her mind over and over. Every smile he gave her now felt like a knife in her chest. But she had to be smart about this. She couldn't let him know what she had discovered. Not yet. I was thinking, Brandon said, not looking up from his phone, maybe we should have a serious talk about our future. Zara's heart stopped. Was he going to ask for the divorce now? What do you mean? Well, you've been working so hard lately. Maybe too hard. I'm worried about you, baby. You seem stressed, confused sometimes. Maybe you should consider stepping back from the company for a while. The manipulation was so smooth, so practiced. He was already setting up his narrative, the stressed-out business owner who couldn't handle her responsibilities. I'm fine, Zara said carefully. The company is doing better than ever. We just signed that deal with Morrison Industries. But at what cost? Brandon reached across the table and took her hand, his touch making her skin crawl. You're exhausted all the time. You forget things. Just yesterday you couldn't remember where you put your laptop. Because you took it, she thought, but kept her face neutral. I remember perfectly. It's in my office. Brandon's eyes flashed with something, annoyance? Before he smiled again. See? That's what I mean. It's right here in the living room. I brought it downstairs last night to check our Netflix account. He was gaslighting her, making her doubt her own memory. How long had he been doing this? Maybe you're right, she said, forcing herself to sound uncertain. I have been feeling a bit scattered lately. That's my girl, Brandon said, squeezing her hand. I just want what's best for you. For us. After breakfast, Brandon left for work, though Zara now wondered if he had a real job at all. She had been supporting him for so long, she had forgotten to question what he did all day. Once he was gone, she went to her home office and started looking through their financial records. What she found made her sick. Over the past 6 months, Brandon had been systematically draining their accounts. Small amounts at first, a few hundred here and there. Then larger sums. He had even taken out a credit card in her name that she knew nothing about. Her business account showed irregular transfers that she didn't recognize. Someone had been accessing her company funds and she had a pretty good idea who. She called her assistant, Priya, at the office. I need you to run a complete audit of all our accounts. Look for any unauthorized access or unusual activity. Is everything okay, Zara? Priya asked. She had worked with Zara for 3 years and knew her well. I'm not sure yet. But I need this done quietly. Don't mention it to anyone. Of course. I'll have the report ready by end of day. Next, Zara called her bank. After verifying her identity, she asked about recent large transactions. Mrs. Thompson, I see several transfers to offshore accounts over the past few months. These were authorized with your digital signature and password. Can you tell me the exact dates and amounts? As the banker read off the figures, Zara's hands started shaking. Brandon had stolen over $200,000 from her accounts. Money she had earned, money she had saved for their future. I need to freeze all accounts immediately, she said. And I need documentation of all these transactions. Are you reporting fraud, Mrs. Thompson? Yes, she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Yes, I am. That afternoon, Priya sent over the audit results. The news was worse than Zara had imagined. Someone with administrative access had been stealing from Thompson Tech Solutions for months. Company funds had been redirected to personal accounts, fake invoices had been created, and client payments had been diverted. The theft totaled nearly $500,000. Zara stared at her computer screen, feeling numb. This wasn't just a cheating husband. This was a criminal who had been systematically destroying everything she had built. Her phone buzzed with a text from Brandon. Working late tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you. The words made her sick. She spent the rest of the day gathering evidence, taking screenshots, printing bank statements. By evening, she had a stack of papers that painted a clear picture of Brandon's betrayal. But she needed more. She needed to know exactly how deep this went. Zara drove to Brandon's office. a shared workspace downtown that he claimed to rent. When she asked the receptionist about Brandon Thompson, the young man looked confused. "I'm sorry, but we don't have anyone by that name with an office here." "Are you sure?" "He's been working here for 2 years. The receptionist checked his computer. "No, ma'am. No one by that name has ever rented space here." Zara felt like the ground was disappearing under her feet. Where had Brandon been going every day? What had he been doing? She drove home in a daze, her mind reeling. Nothing about her life was real. Her marriage was fake, her husband was a criminal, and she had been living a lie for 5 years. When she walked into her house, Brandon was there waiting for her. He was pacing in the living room, his usually perfect appearance disheveled. "Where have you been?" he demanded. "I called the office and they said you left early." "I had some errands to run," Zara said, studying his face. He looked nervous, almost panicked. "What kind of errands? You didn't tell me you were going anywhere." Since when did she need his permission to leave her own house? "Just personal stuff." "Why are you so upset?" Brandon ran his hands through his hair. "The bank called today. They said there were some questions about our accounts. Something about suspicious activity." So he knew. The bank must have flagged his access when she froze the accounts. "I don't know anything about that," Zara lied smoothly. "Maybe it's just a routine check." "No, it's not routine." Brandon snapped, and for a moment she saw the real him. The man from the video, cold and calculating. "They froze our accounts, Zara. All of them. They're treating this like fraud." "Well, is there fraud?" she asked innocently. Brandon stared at her, and she could see him trying to decide how much to reveal. "Of course not. But you know how paranoid banks can be. We need to fix this immediately." "I'll call them tomorrow and sort it out," Zara said. "No," Brandon said quickly. "I'll handle it. You're too emotional about money stuff. I don't want you to say the wrong thing." There it was again. The subtle undermining, making her seem incompetent and unreliable. "Okay," she said meekly. "Whatever you think is best." Brandon relaxed slightly. "That's my girl. Don't worry about any of this. I'll take care of everything." As Zara went upstairs to bed, she realized something important. Brandon thought he was still in control. He thought she was still the trusting, naive wife who would let him handle everything. He had no idea that she had already seen behind the mask. And tomorrow she was going to start taking her life back. Zara didn't sleep that night. She lay next to Brandon, listening to him breathe, wondering how many nights he had fallen asleep planning her destruction. Every time he shifted in his sleep, she tensed, afraid he might wake up and see the truth in her eyes. At 5 in the morning, she quietly slipped out of bed and went downstairs. She made coffee and sat at her kitchen table, looking out at the garden she had planted 3 years ago. Everything about this house was her money, her taste, her work. But Brandon was planning to take it all away. Not anymore. She opened her laptop and started writing down everything she knew. The video, the stolen money, the fake office, Nicole, their plan to frame her as mentally unstable. She needed to document everything before she made her next move. Her phone rang at 7:30. It was her business partner, Robert Chin, calling from their New York office. "Zara, we have a problem. The Morrison deal is falling apart. They're saying there were issues with our financial records." Her blood ran cold. "What kind of issues?" "They're claiming our books don't match what we submitted in our proposal. Someone's been telling them that Thompson Tech has been mismanaging funds." Brandon. It had to be. He was already trying to sabotage her business reputation. "Robert, I need you to prepare a complete financial audit immediately. Use an outside firm, not our regular accountants. And don't tell anyone what you're doing." "Zara, what's going on?" "I think someone has been stealing from the company. I'll explain everything later, but right now I need that audit." After she hung up, Zara realized how brilliant Brandon's plan really was. He wasn't just stealing her money, he was destroying her credibility. By the time he filed for divorce, everyone would think she was an incompetent business owner who couldn't manage her own company. But she had advantages he didn't know about. Thompson Tech Solutions was her baby. She knew every contract, every client, every dollar that came in and went out. And she had built relationships in the industry that Brandon couldn't touch. She spent the morning calling her biggest clients directly. By noon, she had confirmed that someone had been contacting them, spreading rumors about her company's stability. Someone who claimed to be acting in their best interests. Someone who sounded a lot like her husband. When Brandon came downstairs for breakfast, he was back to his charming self. He kissed her cheek and asked about her day. "I have some meetings today," Zara said carefully. "What about you?" "The usual. trying to get that new consulting contract. He poured himself coffee and sat across from her. Oh, I meant to tell you, I ran into Nicole right at the coffee shop yesterday. Remember her? From the Parker Industries party? The casual way he said her name made Zara's stomach turn. Nicole Wright. Blonde marketing consultant. Anyway, she mentioned that she's heard some concerning things about your company. Industry gossip, probably nothing, but maybe you should be aware. He was planting seeds, making her doubt herself and her business. Making her think the problems were coming from outside when he was the one creating them. What kind of things? Zara asked. Oh, just rumors about financial irregularities. You know how people talk. But Nicole thought you should know, since it could affect future contracts. Nicole. His partner in crime was now pretending to be helpful. The audacity was breathtaking. That's interesting, Zara said. Maybe I should meet with her. Get her advice on how to handle these rumors. Brandon's coffee cup paused halfway to his lips. I don't think that's necessary. Nicole's pretty busy, and you don't want to bother her with company problems. I insist, Zara said firmly. If she's heard rumors, she might know where they're coming from. Can you set up a meeting? She could see Brandon's mind racing, trying to figure out how to refuse without seeming suspicious. Let me check with her, he finally said. She travels a lot. After Brandon left, Zara drove to her office. Thompson Tech Solutions occupied 2 floors of a downtown high-rise that Zara had chosen because of the view. She loved coming to work, loved the energy of her team, loved building something from nothing. She wasn't going to let Brandon destroy it. Her assistant Priya was waiting with more bad news. 3 more clients called with concerns about the company's financial stability. Someone's been telling them we're having cash flow problems. Get me a list of everyone who's contacted our clients. I want names, dates, everything. Zara spent the day calling in favors, reaching out to people she had mentored, clients she had helped over the years. Slowly, she started to understand the scope of Brandon's plan. He had been methodically undermining her reputation for months. Not enough to destroy her immediately, but enough to plant doubt. Then, when the divorce happened, everyone would already believe she was failing. But Brandon had made one crucial mistake. He thought she was weak. Zara Thompson had grown up in Detroit, the daughter of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat. She had put herself through MIT, started her first company at 25, and built Thompson Tech from her kitchen table. She hadn't survived all of that by being weak. That evening she got a call from an unknown number. When she answered, a woman's voice said, Mrs. Thompson? This is Detective Lisa Rodriguez with the Financial Crimes Unit. We'd like to speak with you about some irregularities in your business accounts. Zara's heart raced. Had Brandon somehow turned this around on her? What kind of irregularities? We've received a report suggesting you may be embezzling from your own company. The person who filed the report was very concerned about your mental state. Brandon. He was moving faster than she had expected. Detective Rodriguez, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm the one who should be filing a report. Someone has been stealing from me. There was a pause. Mrs. Thompson, the person who contacted us, provided extensive documentation. Bank records, email communications, witness statements. They seem to believe you've been moving money around inappropriately and then forgetting about it. That's not true. Someone has been gaslighting me, making me doubt my own memory. But I have proof. I think we need to meet in person. Can you come to the station tomorrow morning? After Zara hung up, she sat in her office staring out at the city lights. Brandon was trying to have her arrested for his crimes. If he succeeded, she would lose everything, her freedom, her company, her reputation. But she wasn't going to let that happen. She picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she was looking for. Gabriel Rivers, the best divorce attorney in the city. She had met him at a charity gala last year, and he had given her his card. At the time, she had laughed and said she would never need a divorce lawyer. She wasn't laughing now. Mr. Rivers? This is Zara Thompson. I need your help and I need it fast. Mrs. Thompson, what can I do for you? My husband is trying to destroy my life, steal my company, and have me arrested for crimes he committed. And he's planning to divorce me and take everything I own. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Thompson, those are very serious accusations. I have evidence. Videos, bank records, everything. But he's moving fast and I need someone who can move faster. Can you be in my office first thing tomorrow morning? I'll be there. As Zara drove home, she felt something she hadn't felt since she found that video. Oh. Brandon thought he was playing a game he couldn't lose. But he had forgotten something important. Zara Thompson didn't just build companies. She destroyed her competition. And Brandon had just become her biggest competitor. Gabriel Rivers' law office occupied the top floor of the tallest building in downtown, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a view of the entire city. As Zara walked through the elegant lobby, she felt like she was entering a war room. Gabriel himself was not what she had expected. Tall and lean with silver-streaked hair, he looked more like a college professor than a cutthroat divorce attorney. But his reputation spoke for itself. He had never lost a high-profile divorce case. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, shaking her hand. "Please sit down. Tell me everything." Zara had prepared for this moment, organizing her evidence into a clear timeline. She started with the video and watched Gabriel's face grow more serious as she explained Brandon's scheme. "Show me the video," Gabriel said. Zara's broken phone was barely functional, but she managed to play the recording. Gabriel watched in silence, taking notes. When it ended, he leaned back in his chair. "This is one of the most calculated cases of marriage fraud I've ever seen," he said. "Your husband didn't just cheat on you. He married you specifically to steal from you. Can you help me?" Gabriel smiled, and for the first time since finding that video, Zara felt like she might actually win. "Mrs. Thompson, by the time we're finished, your husband is going to wish he had never heard your name." They spent the next 3 hours going through every piece of evidence. Gabriel's assistant brought in a team of forensic accountants and private investigators. Within hours, they had uncovered a pattern of financial abuse that went back to the beginning of Zara's marriage. "Look at this," one of the accountants said, pointing to a computer screen. "These transfers started just 2 weeks after your wedding. Small amounts at first, then increasingly larger sums." Gabriel studied the records. He was testing the waters, seeing how much he could take without you noticing. Classic predatory behavior. The private investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, had even more disturbing news. "I ran background checks on both your husband and Nicole Wright. Brandon Thompson isn't even his real name." Zara felt the room spin. "What?" "His birth name is Brian Tucker. He has a record of marriage fraud in 3 other states. Nicole Wright has been his partner in at least 2 of those cases." "Are you saying he's done this before?" "Multiple times. They target successful women, usually entrepreneurs or executives. Brandon marries them, gains their trust, then systematically drains their assets while Nicole helps from the outside." Gabriel's expression was grim. "This isn't just divorce, Zara. This is organized crime." They showed her photographs of Brandon's previous victims. 3 women, all successful, all left financially ruined after their divorces. One had lost her medical practice, another her restaurant chain. The third had been so destroyed by the experience that she had never recovered financially. "What happened to them?" Zara asked. "They were too embarrassed to fight back," Patricia explained. "Brandon and Nicole made sure the divorces looked like mutual splits. The women got some assets, enough to survive, and they were too humiliated to pursue criminal charges." "But I'm not like them," Zara said quietly. Gabriel smiled. "No, you're not. You found evidence, you've kept your head, and you called me before they could complete their plan. We're going to turn this around on them." The plan Gabriel outlined was breathtaking in its scope. They would not only defend against Brandon's divorce petition but launch a counterattack that would expose his entire criminal operation. "First, we get restraining orders to prevent any more asset transfers," Gabriel explained. "Then we file criminal complaints for fraud, identity theft, and racketeering. We're going to freeze every account they have access to." "What about the police investigation? Detective Rodriguez thinks I'm the criminal." Gabriel's smile turned predatory. "I've known Lisa Rodriguez for 15 years. She's a good detective, but she was fed false information. We're going to give her the real story." That afternoon, Zara met with Detective Rodriguez at the police station. With Gabriel by her side and a box of evidence, she told the detective everything. Rodriguez studied the video, the bank records, and the background checks. "Mrs. Thompson, I owe you an apology. The person who contacted us was very convincing. He had detailed documentation and seemed genuinely concerned about your welfare." "That's how good he is at this," Zara said. "He's been practicing for years." "We'll need to coordinate with law enforcement in other states," Rodriguez said. "If this is a pattern, there may be other victims who haven't come forward." Gabriel handed the detective a thick folder. "Everything you need to start a federal investigation. This operation crosses state lines, involves identity fraud, and targets specific types of victims. This is RICO territory." As they left the police station, Zara felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. For the first time in days, she wasn't playing defense. What happens now? She asked Gabriel. Now we spring the trap. You go home, act normal, and let Brandon think he's still in control. Meanwhile, we prepare for war. That evening, Zara arrived home to find Brandon pacing frantically in their living room. His usual smooth confidence was cracking. Where have you been all day? He demanded. I tried calling you. I was at the office dealing with client concerns, she said calmly. You know, those rumors about our financial problems. Brandon studied her face, looking for signs of suspicion. Did you talk to the police about the bank issues? They called and asked some questions. I told them it must be a mistake. Zara kept her voice neutral, boring even. They said they'd look into it. She could see Brandon relax slightly. He still thought she was the trusting wife who believed his lies. Good. I'm sure it will all get sorted out soon. He moved closer to her, putting his arms around her waist. I've been worried about you, baby. You seem stressed lately. His touch made her skin crawl, but she forced herself not to pull away. I'm stressed. The business, the bank problems, everything feels like it's falling apart. That's why I think you should consider stepping back from the company for a while. Let me handle the business side while you focus on taking care of yourself. There it was. The final phase of his plan. Maybe you're right, Zara said, hating every word. I just feel so overwhelmed. Brandon's smile was triumphant. Trust me, sweetheart. I'll take care of everything. As he held her, Zara looked over his shoulder at their wedding photo on the mantel. The happy couple, so in love, so excited about their future together. Soon that photo would be evidence in a criminal trial. And Brandon would finally understand what it felt like to lose everything. The next morning, Zara woke up to find Brandon already gone. He had left a note saying he had early meetings, but she knew better now. He was probably meeting with Nicole, planning their next move. She drove to Gabriel's office, where his team had been working around the clock. The conference room looked like a detective's war room, with charts, timelines, and photographs covering every available surface. We found something big, Patricia announced as soon as Zara walked in. Brandon and Nicole have been running this scam for at least 7 years. We've identified 6 victims across 4 states. She pointed to a map with red pins marking different cities. They move every few years, always to a new market where no one knows their history. Gabriel was reviewing bank records with his forensic accountant. The pattern is always the same. Brandon targets successful women, usually entrepreneurs or executives who've built their own wealth. He courts them aggressively, proposes quickly, then begins the financial manipulation immediately after marriage. What about Nicole's role? Zara asked. She's the setup woman, Patricia explained. She researches the targets, helps Brandon craft his persona, and then assists with the financial theft. She also spreads the rumors that damage the victim's reputation before the divorce. One of the other investigators held up a photograph. This is interesting. Nicole Wright isn't her real name either. She's actually Nicole Patterson, and she has a degree in psychology from Northwestern. She knows exactly how to manipulate people. The scope of their criminal enterprise was staggering. They had stolen millions of dollars over the years, leaving a trail of destroyed lives behind them. How did they get away with it for so long? Zara asked. Gabriel's expression was grim. Because their victims were too ashamed to fight back. Think about it, successful, intelligent women admitting they were completely fooled by a con artist. It's devastating to their self-image. But you're fighting back, Patricia added. That's what makes you different. Detective Rodriguez arrived at noon with more federal agents. The FBI was now involved, treating this as a multi-state fraud investigation. We've been in contact with some of the previous victims, Rodriguez explained. Once they learned there were others, several of them agreed to testify. One of the FBI agents opened his laptop. We've been monitoring Brandon's communications since yesterday. He has no idea we're on to him. The agent played several recorded phone calls between Brandon and Nicole. Zara listened to their voices planning her destruction, discussing which assets to steal next, and laughing about how easy she was to manipulate. In one call, Brandon said, "She's actually considering stepping back from the company. Can you believe how stupid she is?" Nicole replied, "Perfect. Once she signs over control to you, we can liquidate everything. The business alone is worth $3 million. What about the criminal charges angle?" Brandon asked. "I've been talking to more of her clients. They're starting to believe she's having a breakdown. When the time comes, everyone will think she's mentally unstable." Listening to them plot her destruction was painful, but it also fueled her determination. They had underestimated her completely. "We have enough evidence to arrest them now," the FBI agent said. But we'd like to let this play out a bit longer. See if we can catch them in the act of asset transfer. Gabriel shook his head. Too risky. They're moving faster than we expected. We need to act before they can steal any more money or damage Zara's reputation further. They spent the afternoon finalizing their strategy. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. They would serve Brandon with divorce papers while simultaneously having him arrested for fraud. The element of surprise was crucial. He thinks he's controlling the timeline, Gabriel explained. But we're going to flip the script completely. As Zara drove home that evening, she felt a mixture of anticipation and sadness. In a few days her marriage would officially be over. But it had really ended the moment she found that video. Brandon was waiting for her with Chinese takeout and flowers, her favorite white roses. I thought we should have a nice evening together, he said, kissing her cheek. I know things have been stressful lately. The flowers were beautiful, probably expensive. Bought with her money, of course. They're lovely, she said, accepting his kiss. What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion to treat my beautiful wife? He pulled out her chair at the dining room table. I just want you to know how much I love you. The performance was flawless. If she hadn't seen the video, if she didn't know what she knew, she might have been touched by the gesture. During dinner, Brandon was charming and attentive. He asked about her day, listened to her concerns about the business, offered support and advice. He was playing the role of the perfect husband. I've been thinking about what you said, Zara said carefully. About stepping back from the company. Brandon's fork paused halfway to his mouth. Oh, maybe you're right. Maybe I am too stressed to make good decisions. The Morrison deal falling apart, the bank issues, the client concerns, maybe it's all connected to my state of mind. She watched Brandon's face as he processed this. His eyes lit up with greed and satisfaction, but he kept his expression concerned and loving. I hate to see you doubt yourself, he said. But I think some time away from the pressure might be good for you. Would you be willing to help me manage things? Just until I feel more stable? Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you need. Hook, line, and sinker. Actually, Zara continued, I was thinking about making it official. Maybe signing over power of attorney so you can handle all the business decisions while I focus on my health. Brandon set down his fork and took her hands in his. Zara, that's a big step. Are you sure? I trust you completely, she said, the words leaving a bitter taste in her mouth. You're the only person who has my best interests at heart. I'll set up a meeting with a lawyer tomorrow, Brandon said, his voice thick with fake emotion. We'll make sure you're protected. As they finished dinner, Brandon was more animated than she'd seen him in months. He talked about their future, about the vacation they'd take once her stress was under control, about how much better their life would be. He was practically vibrating with excitement about his impending victory. After dinner they watched a movie together on the couch. Brandon held her close, stroking her hair, whispering about how much he loved her. It was the most affectionate he'd been in years. Because he thought he was about to win everything. As they got ready for bed, Zara's phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. Everything is in place. Tomorrow at noon. She deleted the message and climbed into bed next to her husband. Brandon pulled her close and she could feel his satisfaction radiating from him. Sweet dreams, beautiful, he whispered in her ear. Zara closed her eyes and smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow, Brandon would learn that he hadn't been playing chess with an amateur. He'd been playing with a grandmaster. Zara woke up early on Friday morning, her heart pounding with anticipation. Today was the day everything would change. She looked over at Brandon, still sleeping peacefully, completely unaware that his world was about to collapse. She slipped out of bed and went downstairs to make coffee. Her phone had several messages from Gabriel's team, confirming that everyone was in position. The FBI agents were ready, the process servers were standing by, and the media, yes, Gabriel had arranged for media coverage, were prepared to document Brandon's arrest. This is going to be a public case, Gabriel had explained yesterday. We want his face on every news outlet so other potential victims can come forward. At 8 a.m., Brandon came downstairs dressed in his best suit. He looked confident, excited even. Today was supposed to be the day he took control of her company. Big day today, huh? He said, kissing her cheek. Are you ready for this? I think so, Zara said, playing her role perfectly. I'm nervous about signing over so much control, but I trust you. That's my girl. Brandon poured himself coffee and checked his phone. Nicole is going to meet us at the lawyer's office. She has some experience with business transitions, and I thought her perspective might be helpful. The audacity was breathtaking. He was bringing his criminal partner to witness Zara signing away her life's work. That's thoughtful of you, Zara said. I'm glad you have such good friends. At 10 a.m. they drove to downtown. Brandon had chosen a lawyer from a small firm, someone he could manipulate or who might not ask too many questions about the unusual arrangement. The lawyer's office was in an older building, nothing like Gabriel's gleaming high-rise. As they sat in the waiting room, Brandon kept checking his phone and fidgeting with his tie. You seem nervous, Zara observed. Just want everything to go smoothly, he replied. This is a big step for both of us. Nicole arrived at 10:30, and seeing her in person knowing what Zara now knew was surreal. She was beautiful in an obvious way, blonde hair, perfect makeup, expensive clothes. But her eyes were cold, calculating. Zara? Nicole said warmly, giving her a hug. Brandon told me you've been under so much stress. I think you're making a very wise decision. Thank you, Zara replied. I appreciate your support. The three of them sat together while waiting to be called back. Nicole chatted about business, offering advice and sympathy. She was good at this, Zara realized. Really good. If Zara hadn't seen the video, she might have genuinely liked Nicole. At 11 a.m. they were called into the lawyer's office. Mr. Peterson was an older man who seemed more interested in getting through the appointment than asking difficult questions. So, Mrs. Thompson, you want to grant your husband power of attorney over your business interests? Yes, Zara said. I've been having some health issues, and I think it's best if Brandon handles the day-to-day decisions for a while. As Peterson prepared the documents, Brandon and Nicole exchanged subtle glances. They thought they were about to pull off the perfect crime. At 11:45, Peterson laid out the papers for Zara to sign. These documents will give your husband complete control over Thompson Tech Solutions, including the ability to make financial decisions, sign contracts, and access all business accounts. Zara picked up the pen, her hand deliberately shaking slightly. This feels so permanent. It's just temporary, sweetheart, Brandon said, putting his hand on her shoulder. Just until you're feeling better. And we're here to support you through this, Nicole added. Zara looked at the documents, then at Brandon, then at Nicole. You know what? I think I need a few more minutes to think about this. Brandon's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. There's nothing to think about, honey. We discussed this thoroughly. I know, but it's such a big decision. Maybe we should postpone this for a few days. She could see panic flashing in Brandon's eyes. This wasn't going according to his plan. Zara, Nicole said gently, sometimes when we're overwhelmed we overthink things. This is what's best for you. But what if I'm not actually overwhelmed? What if I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years? The room went silent. Peterson looked confused, Brandon looked alarmed, and Nicole's friendly mask was starting to slip. What do you mean? Brandon asked carefully. Zara smiled and stood up from her chair. I mean, what if I know exactly what you've been doing to me? At exactly noon, the office door burst open. FBI agents flooded in, followed by local police and Detective Rodriguez. Brandon Tucker, you're under arrest for fraud, identity theft, and racketeering, one of the agents announced. The look on Brandon's face was priceless. His mouth fell open, his skin went pale, and for the first time since she'd known him, he was completely speechless. Nicole Patterson, you're also under arrest as an accomplice to fraud and conspiracy. Nicole jumped up from her chair, her composure completely gone. This is insane. We haven't done anything wrong. Sit down, both of you, Detective Rodriguez commanded. As the agents read them their rights, Brandon finally found his voice. Zara, what is this? What's happening? She walked over to him, looking directly into his eyes. This is what happens when you underestimate your victim, Brian. His face went even paler when she used his real name. You thought you married a weak, trusting woman who would let you steal everything she'd worked for. But you made one mistake. What mistake? He whispered. You left your phone unlocked. The agents cuffed Brandon and Nicole, but before they led them away, Zara had one more thing to say. Oh, and about the power of attorney documents? My real lawyer is Gabriel Rivers. He's been building a case against you for days. Every phone call, every bank transfer, every lie you've told, we have all of it. Brandon stared at her in shock. Gabriel Rivers? The Gabriel Rivers? The same one who's never lost a high-profile divorce case. The same one who specializes in taking down financial predators like you. As they dragged Brandon away, he was screaming, Zara, please? Let me explain. It's not what you think. But Nicole was quieter. As they led her past Zara, she leaned close and whispered, You have no idea what you've just started. This isn't over. Zara smiled sweetly. You're absolutely right. It's not over. It's just beginning. After Brandon and Nicole were taken away, Peterson sat behind his desk looking stunned. Mrs. Thompson, I had no idea. They seemed so convincing? Yes, they're very good at what they do. But not good enough. Gabriel appeared in the doorway with a satisfied smile. How did it feel? Better than I expected, Zara admitted. For a minute there, I almost felt sorry for him. Don't. We found evidence of 2 more victims just this morning. This man has destroyed lives. As they left the lawyer's office, Zara saw news vans already gathering outside the building. By evening, Brandon and Nicole's faces would be on every local news station. Her phone was buzzing with messages from friends, colleagues, and reporters. Word was spreading fast. But for the first time in days, Zara felt like she could breathe freely. The nightmare was finally over. Or so she thought. 3 days after Brandon's arrest, Zara was beginning to feel like her life might return to normal. The media attention had been intense but mostly positive. She was being portrayed as the brilliant businesswoman who outsmarted her con artist husband. Thompson Tech's clients were calling to offer their support, and several had actually increased their contracts after learning the truth about the rumors that had been spread. It seemed like Brandon's plan had backfired completely. But Gabriel called her on Monday morning with news that changed everything. Zara, we need to meet immediately. There's something you need to know. An hour later, she was sitting in Gabriel's office, watching him pace behind his desk with an expression she'd never seen before: worry. What's wrong? She asked. Gabriel sat down across from her. The FBI has been digging deeper into Brandon and Nicole's operation. What they've found is worse than we imagined. He opened a thick folder and spread out photographs and documents. This isn't just marriage fraud, Zara. This is a sophisticated criminal enterprise with connections across the country. The first photograph made her stomach drop. It was Brandon, but he looked different, younger, with darker hair. He was standing next to a woman who wasn't Nicole. This was taken 6 years ago in Phoenix. Brandon was married to Rebecca Martinez, a successful restaurant owner. But look at this. Gabriel showed her another photograph. Nicole was in the background, sitting at a table, watching. Nicole wasn't just his partner in your case. She's been working with him for years, sometimes as the wife, sometimes as the mistress, sometimes as just a concerned friend. They adapt their roles based on what will work best with each victim. Zara stared at the photographs, feeling sick. How many people have they done this to? We've confirmed 12 victims over 8 years. But the FBI thinks there might be more. Gabriel pulled out another set of documents. Here's what's really disturbing. They don't just steal money and disappear. They've been building something bigger. He showed her a complex chart showing money flows between different accounts and shell companies. Every time they ruin someone, they take those assets and reinvest them in their next operation. They're not just con artists, they're building a criminal empire. What does that mean for me? Gabriel's expression was grave. It means they have a lot more resources than we thought. And it means they're not going to give up easily. As if on cue, Gabriel's phone rang. After a brief conversation, he hung up and looked at Zara with concern. That was Detective Rodriguez. Brandon made bail this morning. How is that possible? I thought he was being held without bail. His lawyer argued that he's not a flight risk because of his ties to the community. Someone put up $2 million in cash for his bail. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Who has that kind of money? Someone who's invested in keeping Brandon quiet, Gabriel said grimly. That afternoon, Patricia called with even more disturbing news. I've been tracking Brandon since he got out of jail. He didn't go home or to a hotel. He went straight to a meeting with 3 men in expensive suits. Could you identify them? I'm working on it. But here's what's interesting, one of them was definitely a lawyer. The other 2 looked like corporate executives. Corporate executives? Think about it, Zara. Brandon and Nicole have been stealing millions of dollars over the years. Where do you think that money went? They've been investing in legitimate businesses, using their stolen capital to build real wealth. The implications were staggering. Brandon wasn't just a con artist, he was part of an organized criminal network that had infiltrated the business world. Gabriel called an emergency meeting with the FBI. When Agent Martinez explained what they had discovered, Zara realized her nightmare was far from over. We've identified at least 3 companies that appear to be fronts for laundering the stolen money, Martinez said. Construction companies, consulting firms, even a tech startup. They've been using their victims' expertise to build legitimate businesses, Detective Rodriguez added. Information stolen from the women they've targeted has been used to create competing companies. Zara thought about all the business plans she had shared with Brandon, all the client information he had access to, all the industry insights she had given him over 5 years of marriage. They've been stealing more than just money, she realized. They've been stealing intellectual property. Agent Martinez nodded grimly. And now that you've exposed them, you've become a threat to a multi-million-dollar operation. Gabriel leaned forward. What kind of threat level are we talking about? Significant. These people have too much invested to just walk away. And they have the resources to fight back. As if to prove his point, Agent Martinez's phone buzzed with a text message. After reading it, he looked up with alarm. Someone just tried to break into Zara's office building. Security cameras caught 2 men attempting to access the Thompson tech floors. Zara felt her blood run cold. They're going after my company. It gets worse, Detective Rodriguez said, checking her own phone. I just got word that someone has been calling your clients, claiming to represent the FBI. They're saying the investigation into your company is ongoing and that clients should be careful about their contracts. The attack was already beginning. Brandon and his network were trying to destroy her reputation and her business before she could testify against them. Gabriel stood up, his expression determined. We need to go on the offensive. If they want a war, we'll give them one. What do you mean? Zara asked. We're going to use their own tactics against them. We know how they operate, we know their weaknesses, and we have something they don't expect. What's that? Gabriel smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. We have you. A brilliant businesswoman who built an empire from nothing. And now you're angry. Agent Martinez looked concerned. We can't condone any illegal activity. Nothing illegal, Gabriel assured him. But nothing says we can't beat them at their own game using legitimate tactics. That evening, as Zara sat in her apartment, Gabriel had insisted she not go home alone. She realized that the real battle was just beginning. Brandon and Nicole's arrest had been the opening move in a much larger game. They had underestimated her once, they wouldn't make that mistake again. But they had also made a critical error. They had revealed the scope of their operation, which meant Zara now understood exactly what she was up against. And if there was one thing Zara Thompson knew how to do, it was win against impossible odds. She picked up her phone and called Gabriel. I want to know everything about every business they've built with stolen money. Every front company, every shell corporation, every fake entity. That could take weeks. Then we'd better get started. Because I'm not just going to defend myself against these people. I'm going to destroy them completely. For the first time since this nightmare began, Zara felt like herself again. Not the victim, not the betrayed wife, but the business leader who had never backed down from a fight. Brandon thought he had married a weak woman he could manipulate and discard. He was about to learn just how wrong he had been. 6 months after Brandon's arrest, Zara stood in front of her bathroom mirror, preparing for the most important day of her life. Today was the final divorce hearing, and today she would face Brandon and Nicole in court for the last time. The months since their arrest had been a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and FBI investigations. 3 more victims had come forward, and the federal case against Brandon and Nicole had expanded to include racketeering charges. But today was about her divorce, and today she would finally get justice. Zara had chosen her outfit carefully. Instead of a conservative business suit, she wore a stunning red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. Her hair was styled in soft waves and her makeup was flawless. She looked powerful, confident, and devastatingly beautiful. If Brandon wanted to show up to court with his mistress, fine. But he was going to see exactly what he was losing. Gabriel picked her up at 8 a.m. looking sharp in his navy suit. You look incredible, he said. Ready for this? I've been ready for months. The courthouse was surrounded by news vans and reporters. Word had leaked that Brandon and Nicole planned to attend the hearing together, and the media was treating it like the trial of the century. Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about facing your husband today? Reporters shouted as they walked up the courthouse steps. Gabriel had prepared her for this. I feel confident that justice will be served, she said calmly, not breaking stride. Inside the courthouse, Gabriel's team was already set up in the gallery. Patricia, Detective Rodriguez, and several FBI agents were there to provide support. But Zara only had eyes for one person. Brandon sat at the defendant's table next to his lawyer, looking thinner than she remembered. Prison hadn't been kind to him. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by a cheap gray outfit that made his skin look sallow. And next to him in the gallery sat Nicole. The audacity was breathtaking. Even facing criminal charges, even knowing that everyone in the courtroom knew exactly who she was, Nicole had come to support her criminal partner. She was dressed conservatively in black, trying to look respectable, but Zara could see the calculation in her eyes. They were planning something. All rise for the Honorable Judge Elena Martinez, the bailiff announced. Judge Martinez was exactly the kind of person Zara had hoped for, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who was known for her fairness and her intolerance for deception. Be seated, the judge said, reviewing the files on her desk. This is the final hearing in the matter of Thompson versus Tucker, also known as Thompson. Mr. Rivers, are you ready to proceed? Gabriel stood. Yes, Your Honor. We're seeking a judgment that awards my client all marital assets, plus damages for fraud and emotional distress. Brandon's lawyer, a nervous-looking man named Peterson, different from the first Peterson, stood up. Your Honor, my client maintains that this should be treated as a standard divorce with equitable distribution of assets. Judge Martinez looked at Peterson over her glasses. Mr. Peterson, are you aware that your client is currently facing federal charges for marriage fraud? Yes, Your Honor, but those charges haven't been proven, and they shouldn't affect the civil proceedings. I see. Mr. Rivers, please present your case. Gabriel moved to the center of the courtroom like a predator approaching its prey. Your Honor, this is not a standard divorce. This is the culmination of a 5-year criminal conspiracy to defraud my client of everything she had worked to build. He clicked a remote, and the screens around the courtroom lit up with financial records. The evidence will show that Brandon Tucker, using the false identity of Brandon Thompson, married my client specifically to steal her assets and destroy her business. For the next hour, Gabriel methodically presented the case. Bank records showing systematic theft. Phone recordings of Brandon and Nicole planning Zara's destruction. Background checks revealing Brandon's pattern of marriage fraud. Zara watched Brandon's face throughout Gabriel's presentation. At first, he tried to look confident, whispering to his lawyer and shaking his head at the evidence. But as the case built, his composure cracked. When Gabriel played the video that had started everything Brandon and Nicole in Zara's bedroom, planning to take everything from her, Brandon's face went white. They're talking about the woman they claim to love, Gabriel said to the judge. Listen to how they describe her. Brandon's voice filled the courtroom. Do you think I'd choose some nerdy black girl otherwise? She's useful, that's all. Several people in the gallery gasped. Zara kept her face neutral, but inside she felt vindicated. Everyone could now see exactly who Brandon really was. Nicole's voice followed. She looks so happy here. So stupid and happy. Judge Martinez's expression grew stern as she listened to the recording. When it ended, she looked directly at Brandon. Mr. Tucker, do you have anything to say about this evidence? Brandon's lawyer whispered something to him, but Brandon pushed him away and stood up. Your Honor, that recording was taken out of context. Yes, I made some mistakes, but I did love my wife. This whole thing has been blown out of proportion. Out of proportion? Judge Martinez repeated. You stole nearly $1 million from your wife and attempted to have her arrested for your crimes. Which part of that is out of proportion? Brandon's face flushed red. She's not innocent in this. She ignored me, she worked all the time, she made me feel like I didn't matter. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Gabriel looked pleased. Brandon was destroying his own case. So your solution was to commit fraud? The judge asked. I never meant for it to go this far. Nicole convinced me. Mr. Tucker, his lawyer hissed, trying to get him to sit down. But Brandon was spiraling. Nicole said it would be easy, that Zara would never figure it out. She said successful women like Zara were always easy targets because they were too proud to admit they'd been fooled. Now Nicole stood up in the gallery. That's not true. He's lying. Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Miss Patterson, sit down and be quiet, or I'll have you removed from my courtroom. But the damage was done. Brandon had just implicated Nicole in open court, and Nicole had just confirmed her identity by responding. Gabriel looked like a cat who had caught the canary. Your Honor, I'd like to call my client to testify. Zara walked to the witness stand, her red dress flowing around her like armor. As she was sworn in, she looked directly at Brandon. He couldn't meet her eyes. Mrs. Thompson, Gabriel began, please tell the court about your marriage to the defendant. For the next 30 minutes, Zara told her story. The fake romance, the gradual financial manipulation, the discovery of the affair, and the realization that her entire marriage had been a lie. She spoke clearly and calmly, never letting emotion cloud her testimony. But when she described finding the video, her voice grew stronger. I realized that I hadn't been married to a person, she said. I had been married to a predator who saw me as prey. When Gabriel finished his examination, Peterson stood up for cross-examination. But he looked defeated before he even began. Mrs. Thompson, Isn't it true that you ignored your husband's emotional needs? I worked hard to build a successful business that supported both of us, Zara replied evenly. But I also made time for our relationship. Or at least I thought I did. But you admit you weren't always available? Gabriel objected before Zara could answer. Relevance, Your Honor? Sustained. Mr. Peterson, your client's emotional state doesn't justify fraud. Peterson tried a few more questions, but it was clear he had nothing. When he sat down, Judge Martinez looked ready to render her decision. But first she had something to say. In 30 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such a calculated and cruel betrayal of marriage vows. Mr. Tucker, you didn't just cheat on your wife. You married her under false pretenses, stole her money, and attempted to destroy her reputation and her business. Brandon was staring at the table, unable to look at the judge. The evidence shows that this was not a crime of passion or a moment of weakness. This was a premeditated, systematic destruction of another human being's life. Judge Martinez looked at her notes, then back at Brandon. However, there is one thing that you and your accomplice failed to understand about your victim. Now she looked at Zara with something that might have been admiration. Mrs. Thompson is not the weak, trusting woman you thought you had married. She is a successful entrepreneur who built a multi-million-dollar business from nothing. And when you threatened everything she had worked for, she didn't collapse. The judge's voice grew stronger. She fought back. And she won. Zara felt tears of vindication welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of Brandon. Judge Martinez picked up her gavel. It is the judgment of this court that the defendant Brandon Tucker has no claim to any marital assets whatsoever. Brandon's head snapped up, his face full of shock and despair. But the judge wasn't finished. Judge Martinez set down her gavel and looked directly at Brandon, her expression cold as steel. Furthermore, due to the fraudulent nature of this marriage and the extensive theft that occurred, I am awarding Mrs. Thompson not only all marital assets but also punitive damages in the amount of $2 million. Brandon's mouth fell open. His lawyer looked like he might faint. But Your Honor, Peterson stammered, my client doesn't have $2 million. Then he'll have to find a way to get it, Judge Martinez replied sharply. The court will place liens on any assets Mr. Tucker may have hidden, including his interests in the various shell companies that have been identified by the FBI. Gabriel stood up. Your Honor, we have additional evidence regarding those shell companies. Proceed. Gabriel clicked his remote again, and new documents appeared on the screens. During the past 6 months, our investigation has revealed that Mr. Tucker and Ms. Patterson have been operating at least 12 different business entities using money stolen from their victims. The financial records were staggering. Construction companies, consulting firms, and investment groups, all funded by money stolen from women like Zara. These companies have generated millions in revenue, Gabriel continued. Revenue that rightfully belongs to the victims who unknowingly funded these enterprises. Judge Martinez studied the documents with growing amazement. Mr. Tucker, are you telling me that you used stolen money to build a business empire? Brandon finally found his voice. Your Honor, I can explain. I don't want explanations. I want answers. Did you or did you not use money stolen from your wife and other victims to fund business ventures? Brandon's lawyer was frantically whispering to him, but Brandon pushed him away again. It's not that simple, Brandon said desperately. Yes, we used some of the money, but we turned it into something bigger. We created jobs, we built value. With stolen capital. Judge Martinez's voice echoed through the courtroom. Nicole suddenly stood up in the gallery. Your Honor, I need to speak. Ms. Patterson, you are not a party to these proceedings. But I am a party to the criminal case, and I have information that could change everything. Gabriel looked concerned. This wasn't part of their plan. Judge Martinez considered for a moment. Bailiff, please escort Ms. Patterson out of my courtroom. But as the bailiff approached, Nicole shouted, Brandon isn't the mastermind. He's just a front man. The real operation is run by someone else. The courtroom erupted in whispers and commotion. Judge Martinez banged her gavel repeatedly. Order. Order in this court. Gabriel quickly stood. Your Honor, I request a brief recess to consult with the FBI agents present. Granted. 15 minutes. As the court recessed, chaos erupted. Nicole was arguing with the bailiff, Brandon was shouting at his lawyer, and reporters were frantically typing on their phones. Gabriel grabbed Zara's arm. We need to talk to Agent Martinez immediately. They huddled in a corner with the FBI agent, who looked as surprised as everyone else. Is there any truth to what she said? Gabriel asked. Agent Martinez nodded grimly. We've suspected there was someone higher up in the organization. The operation is too sophisticated for Brandon to be running it alone. So Nicole is trying to cut a deal? It looks that way. And if she has information about the real mastermind, we need to hear it. When court reconvened, Judge Martinez looked directly at Nicole. Miss Patterson, you claim to have information relevant to these proceedings? Yes, Your Honor. Brandon Tucker is not the person running this operation. He's an employee just like I am. Brandon jumped up from his chair. Nicole, shut up. You don't know what you're doing. Sit down, Mr. Tucker. Judge Martinez commanded. Nicole continued, the real mastermind is someone who's been using Brandon and me to test his system. We've been stealing from women and funneling the money up to him. Who is this person? The judge asked. Nicole looked terrified but determined. His name is Vincent Shaw. He's a legitimate businessman who's been using our operation to fund his expansion into new markets. The name meant nothing to Zara, but Agent Martinez's face went pale. Vincent Shaw of Shaw Industries? The agent asked. Yes. He recruits people like Brandon and me, trains us, gives us targets, and takes a percentage of everything we steal. The implications were staggering. Shaw Industries was a major corporation with government contracts and international operations. Judge Martinez looked at Agent Martinez. Is this person under investigation? He is now, the agent replied grimly. Brandon was staring at Nicole with absolute fury. You stupid woman. Do you have any idea what you've just done? I'm saving myself. Nicole shot back. I'm not going to prison for 20 years because you got sloppy. Gabriel whispered to Zara, this is actually good for us. If there's a bigger criminal organization involved, it strengthens our case for damages. Judge Martinez was clearly trying to process this new information. Miss Patterson, are you willing to cooperate fully with law enforcement regarding these allegations? Yes, Your Honor. I'll tell them everything I know about Vincent Shaw and his operation. Brandon's lawyer was frantically writing notes, probably trying to figure out how to use this information to help his client. But Judge Martinez had heard enough. This court will not be delayed by these new revelations. Mr. Tucker, regardless of who may have been directing your actions, you chose to commit fraud. You chose to steal from your wife. You chose to try to destroy her life. She looked at her notes one more time. The judgment stands. Mrs. Thompson is awarded all marital assets plus $2 million in punitive damages. Additionally, given the new information about the scope of this criminal enterprise, I am recommending that the federal authorities investigate Mr. Tucker's connections to this Vincent Shaw and any other co-conspirators. Judge Martinez turned to Zara. Mrs. Thompson, I want to commend you for your strength and courage. You could have been destroyed by what these people did to you. Instead, you fought back and exposed a criminal organization that was victimizing other women. Zara stood up, her voice steady and clear. Thank you, Your Honor. I just want other women to know that they don't have to be victims. They can fight back. As the judge prepared to close the proceedings, Brandon made one last desperate attempt. Zara, please, he called out as the bailiff approached to escort him away. I know I made mistakes, but we can work this out. Don't let them destroy me. Zara looked at him for a long moment. This man who had pretended to love her for 5 years. This man who had planned to leave her with nothing. This man who had called her some nerdy black girl that he wouldn't choose otherwise. Brandon, she said calmly, you destroyed yourself. As he was led away in handcuffs, Brandon kept shouting, this isn't over, Zara. Vincent Shaw won't let you get away with this. But his threats fell on deaf ears. Judge Martinez banged her gavel one final time. This court is adjourned. As the courtroom cleared, Zara felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It was finally over. Or so she thought. Outside the courthouse, as she was giving interviews to the media, Agent Martinez approached her with a concerned expression. Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk. If Nicole is telling the truth about Vincent Shaw, you may still be in danger. The victory celebration would have to wait. The real enemy was still out there. 3 months later, Zara stood in her office, looking out at the city skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The morning sun cast everything in golden light, and for the first time in almost a year, she felt truly at peace. Thompson Tech Solutions had not only survived the scandal, it had thrived. The publicity around her case had brought in dozens of new clients who wanted to work with the woman who had outsmarted a criminal enterprise. Her company's revenue had doubled in the past 6 months. The investigation into Vincent Shaw had been swift and thorough. Nicole's testimony, combined with the FBI's financial forensics, had unraveled a massive fraud operation spanning 12 states. Shah was now awaiting trial on federal racketeering charges, and his business empire was being dismantled piece by piece. Brandon had been sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. Nicole, in exchange for her cooperation, had received 8 years. Both would be required to pay restitution to their victims, though Zara knew she'd probably never see that money. She didn't need it anyway. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. "Turn on Channel 7 News." Zara picked up her remote and clicked to the local news station. The anchor was standing outside the federal courthouse. In a stunning development in the Shaw Industries case, federal agents have seized assets worth over $50 million that were allegedly purchased with money stolen from fraud victims across the country. The camera showed FBI agents loading boxes into trucks outside Shaw's corporate headquarters. Among the assets recovered are luxury homes, expensive cars, and artwork. Federal prosecutors say these assets will be liquidated and the proceeds distributed to victims of the fraud scheme. Zara's phone rang. It was Agent Martinez. "Did you see the news?" he asked. "Just watching it now. I wanted to let you know that you're likely to receive a substantial settlement from the asset forfeiture. Possibly enough to make you whole for everything that was stolen." "How much?" Zara asked, though she was almost afraid to know. "We're still calculating, but it could be close to $3 million. Zara sat down in her chair, momentarily speechless. Between the court judgment and the federal settlement, she would end up with more money than Brandon had ever stolen from her. "Agent Martinez, what about the other victims?" "They'll all receive settlements proportional to their losses. Some of them are getting their lives back for the first time in years." After she hung up, Zara allowed herself a moment of pure satisfaction. Brandon and Nicole had thought they were so clever, so sophisticated in their criminal operation. But they had underestimated their victims and overestimated their own intelligence. Her assistant Priya knocked on her office door. "Zara? There's someone here to see you. She says her name is Rebecca Martinez." The name sounded familiar, but Zara couldn't place it immediately. "Send her in." A woman in her early 40s entered, with dark hair and kind eyes. She looked nervous but determined. "Mrs. Thompson, I'm Rebecca Martinez. I was one of Brandon's victims in Phoenix." Suddenly Zara remembered. Rebecca was the restaurant owner whose photos Gabriel had shown her during the investigation. "Please sit down," Zara said warmly. "I'm so glad to meet you." Rebecca sat across from Zara's desk, fidgeting with her purse. "I wanted to thank you. If you hadn't fought back, if you hadn't exposed them, I would never have gotten justice." "How are you doing now?" Zara asked gently. "Better. The federal settlement is allowing me to reopen my restaurants. I lost everything when he destroyed my life. I thought I'd never recover." Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. "But more than that, you showed me that I wasn't stupid. For years I blamed myself for falling for his lies. I felt so ashamed." "You have nothing to be ashamed of," Zara said firmly. "These people are professional predators. They know exactly how to manipulate successful, intelligent women. I know that now. Because you proved it. You showed the world that we weren't weak or gullible, we were targeted." They talked for another hour, sharing their experiences and supporting each other. When Rebecca left, she hugged Zara tightly. "You saved my life," she whispered. "I'll never forget that." As the day went on, Zara reflected on how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been trapped in a marriage built on lies, slowly being drained of everything she had worked for. She had thought she was happy, but she had really been a prisoner. Now she was truly free. Her phone rang again. This time it was a reporter from Forbes magazine. "Mrs. Thompson, we're doing a cover story on successful entrepreneurs who have overcome major setbacks. Would you be interested in being interviewed?" Zara smiled. "I'd be honored." That evening, Zara drove to her new house, a beautiful contemporary home in the hills with a view of the entire valley. She had sold the house she had shared with Brandon immediately after the divorce was finalized. Too many bad memories. This house was entirely hers. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every choice reflected her taste and her values. As she walked through her living room, she stopped at a framed photograph on the mantel. It was a picture of her receiving an award from the Small Business Administration last month, Entrepreneur of the Year. Next to it was another frame containing the first article that had been written about her case. The headline read, "How One Woman Outsmarted a Criminal Empire." But the frame Zara was most proud of contained a simple thank you note from a woman in Seattle who had escaped an abusive marriage after reading about Zara's story. "Your courage gave me courage," the woman had written. "Thank you for showing me that I could fight back." Zara's phone buzzed with a text from her sister in Detroit. "Saw you on the news again. Mom would be so proud." Their mother had died 5 years ago, just before Zara met Brandon. She had always told Zara to be careful about men who seemed too good to be true. "I wish I had listened to you, Mom," Zara said softly to the photo of her mother on the side table. But maybe she needed to go through this experience to become the person she was meant to be. The person who could help other women, who could show them that they didn't have to be victims. As the sun set over the valley, Zara poured herself a glass of wine and walked out onto her deck. The city spread out below her, full of lights and possibilities. Her phone rang one more time. Gabriel's name appeared on the screen. "How are you feeling?" he asked. "Free," she said without hesitation. "You know, in all my years as a divorce attorney, I've never seen someone come back from betrayal like this so completely. You didn't just survive what Brandon did to you, you thrived." "I had a good lawyer," Zara said with a smile. "You had something better than that. You had strength you didn't even know you possessed." After she hung up, Zara stood on her deck for a long time, looking out at her city, her life, her future. Brandon Tucker, or whoever he really was sitting in a federal prison cell right now, probably still wondering how everything had gone so wrong. He had thought he was playing chess with an amateur. Instead, he had awakened a woman who refused to be anyone's victim. And now, every time another woman found the courage to fight back against the men who tried to destroy them, a little piece of Brandon's legacy would die. Zara raised her wine glass in a toast to the woman she used to be, trusting, naive, but ultimately strong enough to survive. And then she toasted the woman she had become, fierce, independent, and absolutely unstoppable. The nightmare was finally over. The dream was just beginning.